Welcome back to the Beyond the Years podcast, a podcast about all things Disney.
You're listening to episode number 8. Today we're going to be doing a recap and overall thoughts of Obi-Wan Kenobi episode number 4. So in this episode, we start off with Kenobi kind of waking up dazed and confused because as we remember in episode 3, at the end, Vader drug him through the fire and his arm was severely burned. So he's waking up from that, kind of delirious. And then he's pretty much immediately thrown into the Bacta tank, which I thought was really cool because they do kind of like flashbacks, but they also do like where he's connected to Vader, who is obviously also in a Bacta tank at the same time as him. And it's very apparent that they are connected in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
What did you think about that scene? I love the whole Bacta tank thing. I don't know why, it just really fascinates me. But I think it's so cool to see Vader and then Kenobi at the same time in the Bacta tank. And they're obviously connected.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's what I liked about it is that they're connected through the dreams or whatever, or they're thinking about one another in the past.
Yeah.
So it's just pretty cool.
Yeah. So while Kenobi's in the Bacta tank, it doesn't seem like he's in there for very long, but we really don't know. But what we're seeing is he's having like flashbacks and he's having like weird flashes of Vader. And then he kind of comes out of it and then he pops out of the tank and he's like, where's Leia?
Yeah.
Because Leia's not with them. So then we are basically trying to figure out how we want to rescue Leia. And, you know, he's finding out where Leia is. So is it Roken?
Where they're at.
Ice Cube's son. The guy who plays Roken.
I think so.
Okay. That's his name. I just didn't know if I was pronouncing it right.
Yeah.
So Tala and Roken agree that they're going to go, after some discussion, agree that they're going to go help rescue Leia. So Leia is located in an Inquisitor stronghold in the Mustafar system, which is Vader's system.
Yeah.
And the stronghold is basically located in the middle of the ocean. And so they have to figure out a plan as to how they are going to rescue Leia. And I thought this scene was really sweet because Obi-Wan was like, she's 10 years old. We have to rescue her. I thought that was really sweet that he very obviously cares a lot for her.
Oh, yeah.
And then we come up with a plan, and basically Tala is going to dress up in her Imperial officer uniform and gain access into the stronghold. And then Obi-Wan is going to use like the same breath mask that he used in the Phantom Menace to swim underwater and breathe underwater. And then she's going to let him in. Meanwhile, we have Reva trying to
interrogate.
Yes, she's interrogating Leia and trying to get information from her. At one point, she tries to use the Force and like basically do that mind power thing where they, you know, anybody who's got a weak mind and they can just basically like
read their minds,
pull stuff out of them.
Yeah.
But it did not work on Leia.
Force is strong with her.
Yes. It just goes to show, like you said, the Force is strong in the Skywalker bloodlines, as we obviously know from the whole Star Wars series. I thought Leia was so sweet in this scene because Reva tried to make her believe that Obi-Wan was killed at the hands of Vader. And you could tell that she did believe that he was dead.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And the actress, I think she is so sweet
and
adorable. And she was obviously very upset by the fact that Obi-Wan was, you know, supposedly dead. But she still did not give the information that Reva wanted. So Reva decides that she's going to try to torture her instead. So
bad idea, Reva.
Yeah, so that's where we are with them. Tala and Obi-Wan obviously sneak into the stronghold. I thought it was cool how Tala, she was initially stopped by the other guards.
Oh,
and then
she just took control.
Yeah, she took control of the situation and used her ranking to get through.
Oh yeah. I like that character.
I do too.
I think she'll stick around, and I feel like that could be a potential love interest for Kenobi.
Huh. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I really like her.
Yeah.
So they're obviously going to try to rescue Leia. Obi-Wan stumbles into this hallway, and it's basically a whole bunch of the Jedis from the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
And
a youngling.
I'm not gonna and there's a youngling in there. I'm not
so
gonna
sad.
break down like every single one of them. Some of them we know for sure who they are, and other ones it's kind of up for discussion.
Yeah.
But basically there's a whole bunch of Jedi who are either dead and just being like their bodies are just being preserved, or they're basically frozen and at some point going to be used for something.
Which is the theory about Snoke.
Yeah.
In the future. Which is the sequel trilogy.
Okay.
I thought it was funny that it's like got the same amber color that they're soaked in as the Jurassic Park mosquitoes. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. And Obi-Wan is so taken back by this whole situation that it takes him, like normally he would have just run right through the hallway and the whole point is to get Leia, but he was so taken back by the situation.
Oh yeah.
That he like hears Leia screaming, I think, or something.
Yeah, towards the end after he sees the youngling.
And then he's like, oh my God, we need some sort of distraction. And so Tala, still dressed in her uniform, goes and tells Reva that she knows the location of the Jedi. And then she proceeds to explain where the Jedi are while Obi-Wan rescues Leia. And of course, Leia discovers at this point in time that Obi-Wan is alive.
Yeah.
So that's really sweet. And then basically Obi-Wan and Tala escape with Leia. They kind of trigger the droids towards the end, and then they're like chased and have a couple quick fight scenes, and then
we see Obi-Wan using the Force.
Yes,
like
and
holding back the glass.
Progressively through this episode, you can tell like he's practicing using the Force, and he's kind of trying to get back into the swing of things, get back to using the Force. Get back to using his lightsaber, because as we know, it's been a decade since he used it on a regular basis. Yeah. And so we're just trying to get back into using it.
Yeah.
And being comfortable. But he does use the Force a couple of times. He uses his lightsaber a couple of times in a couple of different little, nothing grand, but like small battles with the stormtroopers. And then Reva comes out right before they're about to escape, and then they have a couple of ships that shoot down the bad guys essentially, and then they're rescued and they fly off. Reva does end up shooting down one of the ships with Wade in it, and Wade dies. I don't think we had been introduced really to Wade as a character.
Yeah, other than he was one of the...
Yeah, just very briefly.
Yeah.
But he dies, obviously, which was sad. And then it kind of makes you think about, like, life just in general. And these are the main characters in the show and in the movies, but people matter. And so you think about the impact that his death had on his family and friends, and like obviously it's a show, so we're just gonna kind of move on from it.
Yeah.
But it was, as I get older, you know, it affects you more, because you think about, you know, even just because someone's not like the main character of a show, they matter.
Yeah. Man,
so
getting deep over here, Ashley.
I don't know. It really made me sad, you know, when he died. And then I can't remember if it was his wife or his
I
friend
think it was just his friend.
who was flying with him.
Mm-hmm.
We just got a very quick shot of her being upset about it, and then we kind of moved on. But
yeah,
he did die, and then we find out that, I guess I'm jumping ahead a little bit. So we kind of skip to, like, they've escaped.
yes,
They think they're good.
yeah,
They're on a ship headed back to where they need to go, and then we go back to Vader chokeholding Reva.
oh,
And
yes.
he's extremely pissed off. He's going to kill her because she's basically let him down.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells him that she put a tracker on the ship, which is actually Leia's little droid, Lola.
Which I didn't even catch the first time until I rewatched the episode, and I was like, oh, that's where I was like, where did she put a tracker? I never see her put a tracker on the ship.
Yeah. So once she confesses that to Vader, it's kind of crazy how his emotions went from going to kill somebody to, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, sure. Maybe you don't suck so bad.
See, this is a Vader that's like very like, I'm gonna kill Obi-Wan Kenobi at all costs, I think. Kind of Vader.
I don't think he wants to kill him. I think he wants to like have him trapped to where he can torture him in every way possible and make him suffer.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like that was pretty clear in episode 3.
True.
I don't think he wants to. I mean, I think eventually he's planning on killing him, but I don't think he wants to do it like quickly. I think he just wants to have him captured.
Yeah. No, I get that. I just get the vibe that he's just like, man, he just wants to catch Kenobi and just wants to kill him.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, he was very frustrated with Reva that she let him down. And then when she's like, oh no, I put a tracker on him, like we can find him, he was immediately like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of just let her go.
Yeah. That's kind of where we end the episode, is with Lola, the little robot. Her like she turns red, and then we see that the tracker is live and it's working. And that's basically the end of the episode. So what were some of your overall thoughts of this episode?
I am digging the parallel of episode 1, 2, 3, and 4 throughout each episode as we go on. So like episode 4, A New Hope, we're on episode 4 now. And one of the funny things is whenever he's underwater and then he gets out of the water and he's not wet. And that's from episode 4 when they're stuck in that trash containment unit, and they're not wet after that.
Yeah.
And it's just like funny, the little parallels of each. Like they're stuck in an Inquisitor base. They were stuck on an Empire base in episode 4.
Yeah.
So I'm loving all that parallel. So my theory for next week is that we're gonna see Qui-Gon Jinn as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
Because we see a Force ghost in episode 4.
I'm really excited for...
Or episode 5, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I'm really excited for episode 5 and 6 because... So obviously it's confirmed we're only getting 2 more episodes for this season. I feel like episode 4 was not my favorite. Episode 3 still was because it had Vader in it so much. And then this episode, we just had him at the beginning with the back to tank. And then pretty much at the end where he's chokeholding Reva. And we didn't have him a lot in the middle.
Yeah.
I liked this episode, but episode 3 was definitely like just a killer episode. But I think the next couple of episodes are obviously going to be amazing. And then if we do get to see Qui-Gon Jinn,
yeah, I feel like we have to,
yeah,
at this point, because they teased it in the beginning, that first episode when he wakes up from the nightmares and he's like, master, are you there?
I feel like we need so in episode 5 of the obviously the
Empire.
Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, that's when Luke is doing a lot of his training with Yoda.
Yep.
And I think we're going to get Obi-Wan kind of getting a retraining.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Well, because like you talked about with Qui-Gon Jinn, I agree. It's not something that I came to on my own. Like, obviously you and I talked about that, and then you mentioned that we might get the Force Ghost.
Yeah.
And we talked about the parallels between each episode and the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that if we do get the Force Ghost with Qui-Gon Jinn, I think that we'll get kind of like a training montage.
That would be cool.
With Obi-Wan. Because obviously we've said this a million times, but he's not been using the Force and his saber for a decade. And we got a little tiny bit of that in episode 3 and a little bit more in episode 4, but it was nothing like serious or earth shattering. So I think episode 5 is going to be pretty epic.
Yeah, he's rusty. But I did love this episode, and going back and rewatching it, I think I liked it a little bit better than episode 3. Even though we got a lot of Vader in episode 3, like this was more like Obi-Wan centric.
Yeah.
And I like that, like, he's reusing his Force powers. Like in the beginning when they're headed to the Inquisitor area, he's on the ship and he moves the little speaker that they're going to be using. And then he's in that tunnel, and Tala calls out to him on that speaker, and she says, "Ben!" And those 2 stormtroopers hear it, and he uses the Force to make a noise in another room.
Yeah.
And then obviously we see him later using the Force to hold the glass underneath the water, which was like, it was pretty awesome. But it's just really fun to see him like work those muscles again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super interesting.
It was a great episode. But I do think the coming a couple of episodes are going to be probably my favorites.
Oh yeah. No, I think they're going to be great. I just know how you feel about Vader, and you just want to see more Vader. But I did like how they because Vader, to me, like, a lot of people are wanting a Vader TV show now, and I feel like that would ruin Vader, because Vader is more menacing when he's only there for like a couple minutes.
Yeah, and it's not just Vader. Like, I like the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Vader. That tension is just very intense.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, you kind of feel that a little bit with them like being on the same planet together. But yeah, I like that tension between the 2 characters.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting the whole time that that they're on that in the Inquisitor Palace, that they're looking for Obi-Wan, but Vader is still like, he's not back on Mustafar. He's in his ship, kind of like idling.
Yeah.
Waiting on like a call, like Obi-Wan's here, and then he ends up being back on the Inquisitor planet. Yeah. Which is interesting too.
Yeah. I don't really know what else to say about this episode. I had the best intentions so we initially watched it
the day it released.
Oh yeah, this one was a weird one because I closed on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Which totally screwed me up. It's ironic because it's like we've decided to do this podcast, and on Wednesdays they're dropping the new show, and it's completely random that I would close on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, that just screwed everything up. So I ended up kind of watching the episode on my phone while I was getting ready for work that day. I overslept, so I didn't have a lot of time to do my normal like routines in the morning. And then so I kind of watched it in a couple of pieces on my phone, so I wasn't fully invested. Yeah. And I wasn't like fawning over every detail. Whereas like the previous episodes, we sat on the couch, we both watched it together.
Yeah.
And this one was just weird.
Yeah.
And then we tried to rewatch it, and I fell asleep because I think that was a day where I worked
6 a.m.
Yeah. So like 5:45 to 3:45, which is obviously early. And I fell asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Because I laid down, which was my mistake. But
yeah, that was Friday or Thursday.
Yeah, I think it was Friday, but I rewatched the first 5 minutes and I completely passed out. So again, we talk about a lot of like relevance in our podcast, like how recently we watched a movie or a TV show and that affects our opinions and obviously thoughts on it. And so for me, like I just don't feel like I got to be fully invested in this one.
Yeah, well, I think we'll be watching it like again today or at some point. Like we might watch it before the next episode or something.
We'll see.
Yeah, it did kind of suck because then the whole week was thrown off because we were both pretty busy through the week and we didn't want to do the podcast at 10 o'clock like we normally do.
Yeah.
Because it's just, we're both tired, and at the end of the night, like we're both losing our voices, and because we both like talk a lot at work, so it's just one of those things that we're like, oh my god, and then we kept putting it off and trying to find time, and obviously life is just busy, but we're like, okay, when Grayson naps today, we have to sit down and do the podcast today.
Yes, and we have so many things we want to do with this podcast. We're going to be recording right after this the Mrs. Marvel episode 1 recap and our thoughts on that, but we also have so many different podcast ideas and we're so excited about the podcast. Like we want to do one every day. I think like we want to record them as much as we can because we want to get the content out there, but also like it's so fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But we've just been really strapped for time. So I think this week, hopefully, I don't know what day I close this coming week, but we'll figure it out. We're just trying to find the routines and pace ourselves so we're not like dead exhausted all of the time.
Yeah.
Even more so than usual. So
yeah. But this is definitely going to be a shorter episode just because like we both enjoyed the episode. Like I think it was my favorite episode, but like again, I haven't watched the episode for almost 4 days now.
Yeah.
So
but
I'm a little foggy on it.
But we're hoping with episode 5, like based on what we think is going to happen in episode 5, I would assume we're going to record right after we watch it.
Yeah,
and we're both going to be freaking pumped.
Yeah, and then
probably.
We'll have to it'll be that, and then we'll have to watch Miss Marvel and then but I think we'll have to do that where we watch it and then come record and then go watch the other one and then come record.
Yeah. Got to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Relevant. Anything else you want to add?
Not really. I'm kind of I like Reva, but I wish we would have got more backstory on her other than like the little bit that she says, because this was the episode I think they should have made like that was her, the youngling that got taken by the Inquisitors or the Sith Lords or the Empire, but like she's lost her luster a little bit because I'm
agree.
like, oh my gosh, like let's get on with her story.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're like holding back because there's rumors about her own TV show coming to Disney Plus, like a mini series, which could just be like 4 episodes or something. But at the same time, I'm like, if we're going to do this, let's just get to know this character. So it's just like you get a step forward and there's like 3 steps back. And this episode felt like 3 steps back for the character.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But I still like the character a lot. I just wish they would have done more with her this episode.
Well, yeah, like at the beginning of the series, she came out like a bat out of hell with like just crazy, very much like Anakin, where she has no patience.
Mm-hmm.
She's very driven by emotion, and she can't see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that's great to watch, but we didn't see a ton of her in this episode.
Yeah. And the whole interrogation, like you can tell that there's something else there. Like right before she starts to hurt like Leia in the torture room, you can tell like she's holding back, but at the same time like she just wants information.
Yeah.
But anyway, it just hopefully next episode she's like in the episode and they give us more like fighting. I don't know. They just need to do something, like they need to put a bookend like on her, like why she's doing what she's doing. I don't know if she's gonna tell Obi-Wan in an episode, but they need to like wrap that up so I can like the character again. It's not that I don't like the character, it's just the story is like dragging out too long for like what they're trying to do with her.
Yeah.
But
okay.
That's just one of my other thoughts that I had. Other than that, I mean, I still love the character herself, and I'm loving all the other supporting actors, and I love Little Leia, which a lot of people are hating on Little Leia for some reason. I'm like, it's a kid actor, like, lay off.
Yeah.
And I think it's fun. I do I'm not a huge fan that it was a back-to-back Saving Leia episode.
Yeah.
Saving Leia in episode 2, 3, and 4, practically. And I'm like, all right, let's get past that and let's more Obi-Wan centric. I mean, it's Obi-Wan centric, but like get Leia back to her planet and then let's go forward.
Yeah, I feel like we need to get her back home and then just leave her there and then move on with our lives.
Yeah, because I think if Vader sees Leia, he's gonna know that that's his daughter. If they run into him, I don't know if that's gonna be true, but like. He figures it out with Luke. And maybe because it's older Vader and he's not so like hell-bent on torturing Kenobi. And his like head's a little bit more fogged now since he's seen Kenobi for the first time in 10 years and all that. But anyway.
I will say this show, I mean, we've talked about this before, but this show really makes me want to rewatch the films.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I almost rewatched Revenge of the Sith last week because I was like, oh man, like I need more like a refresher on Anakin becoming Vader. And I love, like, I understand why people don't like the prequels. The prequels took a while to kind of settle in and people enjoy them. But I've pretty much always liked the prequels.
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah.
We'll have to do a rewatch.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually. But I think that's all I'm going to say about the episode, unless you have anything else to say.
I don't. But as always, thank you so much for listening today. Please share the podcast with your friends. Give us a rating on whatever platform you are listening. We are currently on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. The YouTube one typically takes us... There's a little bit of a lag between when we post on Spotify and Apple Podcast and then YouTube, just because we have to compress the thumbnail over the audio, and then just uploading to YouTube does take a little bit longer. So we are continuing to put those podcasts on YouTube, but it just takes a little bit longer. But thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you in the next one.